Hello and welcome to a video about stuffing Gnorwen. We do this in a few stages. First we're going to stuff her hat, which is what we're going to do right now. She's got quite a pointy hat, which is why I have this chopstick here. If you have needles, that will probably, like a straight needle or a longer circular tip, that will also probably help. We only need it just for the very tippy tip, but that is all we when you need a tool, you need a tool. So that might happen. Now, one of the things I like to mention with stuffing gnomes is the general principle that bigger chunks have bigger gaps between them. So if I were to do big gap, big gap, big gap, or big, 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 you can see that there's going to be space in between. But just the way that sand particles can nestle a lot closer than big rocks, smaller chunks of fluffy stuffing will work better. You'll notice that mine has some vegetable stuff in it. This is roving that I use. So that's why it looks a little more fresh from the sheep than maybe polyfill does. So this first thing is a bit of a guessing game to try to figure out just how much stuffing goes into this tip. So don't make it very wide and don't make it very tight. Just kind of get a nice small loose amount, and then you've got to get it as high up as you can with just your finger. And that is too much, too big. So let's see how, as I was stuffing it, it was compacting. So let's go much smaller, and we'll do this in a few stages. So let's see how high I can get this right now. Oh, that's much better than before. So now I'm just going to take the chopstick here and just kind of go up. What we don't want is for this to stuff in a way that gets all like so stuffed here, because we've got the chopstick pushing it, that we are getting it out of shape. We still want to maintain the sort of the cone shape of her hat without overstuffing. And in general, you'll notice that I will advise people to stuff their hats more loosely or more lightly than the body. What we're looking for is a little bit of a change of like the density. When the gnomes are fully packed and have more weight higher up, then it's harder to get them to stand without them wanting to tip. So if we pack the hat enough that it holds its shape nicely and has a good sense of itself, but not so tight that it's starting to get more weight, that's kind of what we're looking for. So it's good to go in and just kind of check to see, am I getting bumpy anywhere? If you are, you may need to use your finger and just kind of go in there and just move things around a little bit. I use 2 fingers to stuff and then just kind of push the stuffing around when I do this. The pieces get bigger as the hat gets wider, partly because I stuff it in, and then like I said, I kind of widen it out with my fingers, so the pieces can get a little bigger, because of course it's almost like I'm doing a sedimentary rock that way. And exactly how far you stuff is not vital at this stage. Like I said, there are multiple stages. What we need to do is stuff the hat before we get closed enough in our decrease point that getting our hands that deep in is a problem, especially because her hat is so tall. So, all right, a few more decreases. It's getting a bit smaller, so we're going to do just another quick body thing. When it gets smaller here, I like to put my fingers in the shape of a C and brace my DPNs on it. If you're using another needle method, obviously that may or may not work for you. I think it still would if you went across here. And again, we're just going to take small amounts and just stuff the body. Avoid large amounts. It is really easy for lumps to develop, or for lumps to develop sort of over time. Your gnome may look fine when you start, but you know, after a few months, things can kind of go back to the way they are. If they start off with large lumps, your gnome can be lumpy. So just take the time, pull your stuffing apart, kind of get it nice and loose. And like I said, I really like kind of a sedimentary rock approach, where I put it in thin strips across the bottom, and then I use my fingers to straighten it out or spread it out to the edges and keep things nice and smooth. Stuff it up until about here, and that'll be good for the moment. And we are back. This is the weighted stuffing section. And I just want you to know that if you feel like you want to knit a couple more decreases before doing the weighted stuffing, that's your call. It's a real personal taste. So I am using black beans. Navy beans. Every bean, if you're using poly pellets or weighted stuffing of another kind, every type has a different density, and so we'll need a different proportion of weighted stuffing to body size. And it's important to know that it's okay to sort of stuff, put the weighted stuffing in, try to see how it stands, go, oh no, I messed up, and then you know, fix it however you need to fix it. I will turn the sound down on the beans because it's impossible to do this quietly. If you're wondering, let's go back this way. It is so much easier when I do it this way. It lifts it up and gives it space to fall into. If you're wondering why I've switched in my videos from doing poly pellets to beans, I've also switched to roving, and it's because both poly pellets and polyfill are plastic, and these are biodegradable. If this was for a toy that needed washing, I obviously would not be doing the beans method. We would have a chia butt. All right, so the main thing is to always take into account that you can't really stuff for volume beyond the turning round. If you do that, your gnome will have a rounded bottom, and it will be much harder to keep it standing. So always kind of figure out where is that turning round, and where should I stop stuffing. There is a bit of leeway in terms of like getting the weighted stuffing down into the fluffy stuffing. But once you have it where you think, okay, that's about right, you're just going to take a small amount of fluffy stuffing and you're going to put a cap on that weighted stuffing so it doesn't bounce around while you work those last few increase rounds or decrease rounds. Can you imagine if we started increasing now and it was a big surprise? That is not the big surprise. So just get it kind of covered. You may find it really helpful to now put the gnome in a glass or other container that can hold it up. Maybe you've got a nice vase, and work those last few rounds with something supporting it, or maybe even just holding it in your lap. It's just a few stitches, won't take too long. Just kind of whoosh through them and be happy that this weighted stuffing knitting section is done. I hope that helps. Happy knitting and happy gnoming.